What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another Reddit video here on the Life Stories channel. My name's Dylan, and today we're going to be looking at some stories from the subreddit Tales from the Squadcar, so sit back, relax and enjoy the show. Officer, the DNR. The priority traffic tones broke me out of my red light sports talk days. All units, the channel is being held for a shooting in progress. The dispatcher was calm considering the nature of the call. Charlie 23 24 25 Echo 7 10 12 Bravo 2, starting for a shooting, 1724 3rd Street. Caller advises a client has come into the office and is shooting at the staff. More to follow. I flipped on my lights and eased into the intersection. I was about a mile away and knew the traffic was going to fight me the entire trip, but still, running to a hot call beat returning property to storage. Plus, being on homicide squad, I figured I'd need to go there anyway at some point. The radio fired up again as I mashed my Impala's air horn at a stubborn minivan. Caller still on the line, advising the subject is trying to find his accountant. Caller states he shot at the receptionist and is reloading. Unknown on injuries. Bravo 2, I'm direct. Starting more units, I need shields and long guns. Ask the caller what kind of gun we're dealing with. The responding lieutenant was already making some good strides at scene management. I pondered crossing the double yellow lines to pass the line of traffic stopped ahead, but thought better of it. That's a firefighter move, and knowing my bosses, I'd be written up faster than I could say I'd be staging up the road. A few more mashes on my air horn and finally a hole large enough developed in the line in front of me to ease through and into the intersection. The next block was just as congested, and the slow realization was forming in my head that this response would be a painful one the whole way. Bravo 2, I'm pulling on scene. I have citizens running from the building. First 3 units up here form up and we'll make our way to the scene. Active shooter. The lieutenant's command of the situation made for a more emphatic air horn mash from me. Maybe if I hit it hard enough I'd be on the response team. Office work and the tedium of always being the last one to the scene, as the follow-up detected, had taken a toll on my previous adrenaline-packed lifestyle. Another red light and another line of cars. This time due to emerge on the other side of the intersection, thanks to one of the area's ubiquitous construction zones. I cycled through my limited siren options to no avail, yelling obscenities whilst taking the few inches being begrudgingly ceded to my encroachment. The elderly man in front of me threw his hands in the air in frustration, echoing my sentiments at the situation. I've got a shooting I've got to get to, I yelled at him through layers of soundproof glass. Bravo 2, we have 5 on scene making entry. Keep the channel for us and give any updates over air. Crap. Command 3, we have more patrol assets continue in code, but under no circumstances will unmarked units continue lights and siren. Double crap. I half-heartedly hit my air horn a few more times, hoping for a miraculous parting of the seas of cars, but knowing I'd have to call it quits or else face the wrath of bad emergency response policy. Reluctantly, I turned off my lights and siren and tried my best to pull my cruiser back into the normal lane of travel like the rest of the sardines around me. I sheepishly looked at my right at a soccer motorist in the right lane, who had evacuated through the lane I was now occupying during my blood pressure raising response. She shook her head and rolled her eyes at me. The old man in front of me, still locked in by brake lights and thousands of pounds or annoyed metal-wrapped humanity, shot me a dirty look in the rear view and again threw his hands up in exasperation. I drummed my fingers on the steering wheel and prayed to the deities of traffic that I'd be granted passage soon. A trio of marked cars flew past on the wrong side of the double yellow line. Buggers. 1 migraine later and I wedged my car into a barely open wedge of a curb. Radio updates had been coming in hot and heavy whilst I took a much slower pace to arrive. The scene had been updated to a 3rd floor accounting office. Bravo 2 and his team of patrol officers heard shots as they made entry into the funtatorium, and just prior to arriving at the office, the caller updated dispatch and that the man had turned the gun on himself when he realised police were close. Somehow Biggs had arrived just as I made it onto the scene, so we decided we should get started with the cleanup side of the case, at least now that the fun part had ended. We met Bravo 2, one of my former bosses, inside the building's large auditorium lobby and got his account. Here to take over my messy MR? Yeah, something like that. I flipped open a notebook and positioned my pen, ready to record whatever tidbits may be of use for my report. Well, not much in it. We rolled in and heard 2 shots. He pointed up to the open-air 3rd floor bordering the auditorium, and we made our way over to the stairs by the elevator. By the time we got there, the guy had no pulse, just the 3 gunshot wounds to the chest. I paused my scribbling. Wait, 3? Yeah, I guess that crazy revolver he was using may or may not have been the best suicide option. That, or maybe he didn't want to do damage to his head and or the DNR he posted there. Now Biggs was confused as well. DNR on his head? Yeah, craziest thing I've seen in a while. You should probably just take a look. Lieutenant smirked and looked over at Biggs and I at the coming onslaught of the command staff, feeling emboldened now that the all-clear had been officially provided. We good? I couldn't figure out the response he wanted from me, but figured the brass would soon pull him away regardless. Yeah, sure, good work. We'll call if we have any more questions. On his head. Biggs and I exchanged a further confused look before heading to the stairs. At the office, we were greeted by one of Bravo 2's initial entry team, Bartlett. He was leaning against the wall to the side of the large glass doors leading to the now evacuated accounting office. Fellas? We took in the view through the glass, not sure yet where crime scene would be, setting up shop and not wanting to accidentally contaminate the scene. The male was seated against the floor, back pressed up against the glass window and a large pool of blood surrounding him. His right hand still gripped the Taurus judge and several spent .410 castings were scattered on the floor. The guy had reloaded at least once. True to Bravo 2's word, a piece of blue painter's tape adorned the dead man's forehead. The words "Do not resuscitate" were scrawled in Sharpie, with the letters DNR capitalised and underlined. Bartlett cockily slauntered over. Yeah, I was ready to blow the dude away, but it looks like he did the job for me. I looked at him sideways but didn't comment, instead opting to continue examining the bizarre scene. The man had 3 weeping wounds on his chest, each plume of bright red blood made more grisly due to the contrast with his right dress shirt. Several holes were obvious in the walls and broken glass littered the floor. A metal sign proclaiming the accountant's firm name seemed to have drawn the bulk of the gunfire, but clearly the gunman had not been choosy with his target or ammo conversion. The hot receptionist held on to me whilst I ran her out. Bartlett bobbled his head and put on a cocky expression. If you all hurry up, maybe I can catch her digits before I roll. Good idea. Biggs was clearly getting annoyed. How about you go and find her now and leave us alone? I grimaced, but Bartlett seemed unfazed. Yeah, nice. He stomped down the hall but paused. Yeah, I want anything from Burger King? I'm starving. No. Biggs answered for both of us. From that point our job was easy. Identify the subject, simple seeming as he was a client, arrange notification for his next of kin, son he had with his ex-wife, and wait while at the crime scene to make sure that we recorded everything we needed. Biggs was able to remotely listen to the 911 call just before Bravo 2's team arrived to find the guy deceased. In it, the sobbing receptionist indicated she was hiding under her desk. The gunman entered the lobby again after failing to locate his target in the back, and the first gunshot was heard. The man yelled, "Ow, damn it," before a second shot. Then there was cursing, followed by a third shot, and finally silence. Jesus, what a way to go. We lingered in silence after Biggs hung up with the call centre. The traumatised, hot receptionist came back asking if we could retrieve her purse and coat. True to form, Bartlett appeared out of nowhere to linger and make awkward attempts at small talk. First time involved in something like this, he asked, seductively processing a French fry down his gullet. Before she could answer, he added, "I get into stuff like this all the time." "Yep." He exhaled and shook his head. "It's tough being a first responder." The girl, a timid 20-year-old something who would clearly need therapy in the near future, just shook her head in disbelief. "I was totally going to blow this dude away and save you if I needed to." Calloused to the green shade his wilting and not so adoring fan was turning, he continued, "Part of a day's work, you know." He selected another French fry from the cardboard sleeve and ate it whilst peeking through the door at the body. The crime scene boss, a man known for being gruff even on a good day, came around the corner from inside the office and did a double take at Bartlett before shooting a glare at Biggs. Biggs shrugged his shoulders in reply. The lieutenant went to say something, but Bartlett, oblivious to the professional danger now stalking him from across the room, turned back to this thrall once more. You know, it's kind of funny, he plucked one of the last french fries from his stash, held it delicately with the tips of his thumb and forefinger. All this blood sort of looks like ketchup, right? Several disastrous events happened in quick succession. Bartlett mime-dipping his fry in the bloody evidence, the crime scene boss growled an expletive, the receptionist, reaching the end of her fortitude, wheeled and made a dash for the restroom across the hall, and Biggs's hand subconsciously raised and smacked his forehead. The soft squish of the french fry landing in the pool of blood was drowned out by the retching sound of the receptionist not quite making it to the toilet. Bartlett was immediately at a loss of how to recover both his fry and his machismo, and the lieutenant turned a shade of purple I would usually associate with ripe grapes. "Get the hell off my scene," he screamed. Bartlett made 2 half jabs at grabbing his fry, but opted instead to scamper away. The crime scene tech stood jaw on floor, glancing from the fry to the hunched over receptionist and the trail of vomit ending before the bathroom door. I moved to comfort her, motioning for crime scene just to give me her property so we could get out of there, then guided her to the elevator and an awaiting co-worker. Back at the scene, the lieutenant was still raging and the crime scene pressed the hurry up button. Biggs seemed at a loss for words, but I felt the need to get something out. Those fries did look pretty good. Geez, what a story. This guy could probably write a compelling crime novel. The response policy sounds like a nightmare. I can't even fathom getting written up for trying to run code to an active shooter. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Corrections, friendly fire. So, ladies and gents, here we are. This one was relatively recent, about 10 months ago. We had a lot of staff working that day. Full shifts plus all admin and a power shift plus 2 rookies, almost out of OJT. I was chilling and booking when a call goes out for a fight in our medium security unit. They were currently all out for dinner. We had 2 officers back there feeding, one of the rookies plus a rover. Myself, the sergeant from booking, and the lieutenant who just happened to be nearby rushed to the scene. We get there and find both inmates separated, but there's still a heated verbal altercation occurring. We move between the inmates and the larger of the 2 makes a passing remark about the other's stature. He's about 5'2", with the speed of a gazelle and the strength of a tiger. Well, Mr. Speedy Gonzalez doesn't like this too well. He shoves through us and full on tries to tackle the bigger guy. Obviously this doesn't work out too well in his favour. The big guy grabs him by the neck and proceeds to punch him repeatedly. By this point we're all fighting whilst the rookie locks the rest of the inmates down. I commend her for having enough foresight to do so. Both of these particular inmates have several backers in the pod. We split the inmates up and myself and one of our veteran officers, just happens to be ex-marine, grabs the big guy and escorts him out of the pod. This guy was known for having anger management issues on the street and had a history of blacking out during altercations. Disclaimer, I'd been through a fight or 2 with this guy before, and just like in previous fights, he didn't know who we were. As we were leaving the pod, the officer I was helping escort shoves him out the door and proceeds to swing his arm round pretty quickly to brace for a punch and be ready to retaliate if this guy swings. Well, in doing so, he elbows me straight in the damn mouth and nose and I start bleeding from my lip. The big guy decides to pick a fight with me. Oh boy. He tries to pick me up, but I shove him back and the next thing I know the veteran is spraying OC. I happen to get the back spray from the big guy's face in the midst of all this, and boy does it feel like a summer sun in my mouth and nose right now. We wrestle for another minute, and by this point some of the officers are exiting the pod to come and assist, presumably because CENTCON let them know what was happening. I yell to the rookie to go get the restraint chair, and he does. Big guy's walking down the hall now, more focused on getting the OC out of his eyes than he is on about me. I'm freaking dying from the OC whilst the vet is walking with me behind the inmate, ready to strike again if need be. We get down through 2 of the hallways and the rookie meets us with the chair. Big guy sees the chair. Big guy does not like the chair. Big guy proceeds to pick the chair up. It's at this point big guy gets another dose of spicy deodorant in the face from the rook. Keep in mind this is how the current scene is laid out. Me and the vet behind the big guy, restraint chair in front of the big guy, rook behind the restraint chair. Yeah, you see where this is going. I get my second dose of the sugar and spice as well. This time it gets right in my eyes. Now Vet is pissed because he got a good hit too, so he places the big guy into a shoulder pin restraint and takes him oh so gently to the floor. Sergeant and Lieutenant are coming back down the hall from the pod. They got Speedy locked down in isolation without any problems. Leaves it to the admin to take care of it peacefully. They go and grab some milk and towels, and at this point big guy is half asleep, and the half that isn't asleep is beginning to apologise between the heavy breaths and coughs. We get him into the restraint chair without any further incident. I walk back down the halls to survey the damage and to make sure no one lost any equipment, and I can follow the trail of blood all the way back to the pod door, like some twisted breadcrumb trail from my own mouth. The injuries didn't last long thankfully, and I didn't have a broken nose either. The vet apologised to me afterwards. There was a quick session the next day about Crossfire and how it pertains to OC spray. Everyone was informed that we need to consider the angle of our attack before spraying and also need to be more aware of our surroundings when we're hands on. Lesson learned, and we found out that we had some pretty good rookies on our hands, maybe lacking in their OC aim. When reading through this story, I originally thought to myself, being hit by pepper spray and Crossfire can't be that bad, imagine being hit by a taser. But then looking through the comments, people are saying I'd much rather be exposed to a taser than OC any day. Have you guys ever had any experience with either of them, and which one's worse if you have? Well, that's it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy it, leave a like rating down below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.